Dumping down the masses is the most basic way of fascist propaganda. If the masses see the police force or the state as sacred beings, this mass is already ready for fascism. Unity of voice is essential. All dissenting voices must therefore be shut down or controlled, as is the case today. Any ideas contrary to the official one are defined as terrorist and read as subversive activity and harmful to societies.
Dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
Propaganda can be defined as the manipulation of the emotions, attitudes, and behaviors of the masses around a desired subject. I will introduce you to a type of propaganda that will be familiar to the people living in today's nation-states. Goebbels type propaganda.
Wie schwer auch die Krise im Augenblick sein mag, sie wird durch unseren unabänderlichen Willen.
This propaganda was used primarily in capitalist states after the Second World War, although it's more pronounced in autocratic one-person regimes. It's among every government's tactics. With the defeat in World War I, Hitler had seen the success of the British and the Americans in setting up committees to produce and disseminate propaganda. On page 176 of Mein Kampf, which he published in 1925, he says that he learned a lot from enemy war propaganda and that the effect of propaganda became evident during the war. Since the first task of the National Socialists was to simultaneously destroy all trade unions and all democratic institutions, it was necessary to show society that these were demons plotting to destroy the German state. So, Goebbels-type propaganda needs an audience that idolizes the state and sanctifies the police in place of this concept of human rights. If such a mass doesn't exist, it has to be produced in a dictatorship. If the masses see the police force or the state as sacred beings, this mass is already ready for fascism. This is usually accomplished through endless repetition by producing an enemy. The enemy is characterized as terrorist, and any demonstration of the state's power against the enemy is popularized. The belief that the state will crush the enemy is reinforced in the people, and the functioning of the exploitation apparatuses of fascism is operated behind this curtain. Meanwhile, the enemy's history is rewritten and official history reproduces all the values between the state and the people. These values are transmitted as if they were real history, and any claims to the contrary are read as support for the enemy. Any ideas contrary to the official one are defined as terrorist and read as subversive activity and harmful to societies. Constant repetition is very important here. Selected words dominate the media. In all fascist regimes, a Ministry of Communication was established. Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Public Information and Propaganda, was in charge of such a ministry. In this way, all media channels and products are controlled and equipped with the same codes.
Already shown the first installment of the indictment which the Nazi propaganda film unwittingly makes against itself.
In films, history is imprinted in the mind through the establishment of the state or the heroization of figures or values. In Germany in the 1930s, it became almost impossible to read book or newspaper, listen to a radio broadcast or watch a movie and not come across the world of the Nazis. When Hitler came to power in 1932, he had the votes of around 14 million voters behind him. The Book of Lies and Decay, Goebbels states that propaganda aims to get people fired up over time to a particular idea. This can go as far as organizing attacks by a group defined as terrorists. As propaganda, the state can carry out actions on behalf of the group it defines as terrorist. It can mobilize this group by harming it. In his book, Goebbels believes that a movement can only be mobilized if it gains power in the political arena. This power can be achieved through propaganda. For this unity of voice is essential. All dissenting voices must therefore be shut down or controlled, as is the case today. All means that can mobilize the manufactured enemy should be tried, and if this fails, the enemy should be blamed and actions should be carried out through secret intelligence networks. Party ideology must be transformed into state ideology. For this purpose, all social values must be exploited as much as possible. In the words of his book, the nation must be kneaded into a unity in which what one says yes, the other will not say no. Fascism constantly repeats the phenomenon of us. It establishes the distinction between them and us in the consciousness. They are the terrorists. We are those who serve the party state or state. Goebbels stated that if a political movement is successful enough to take over the state, it also acquires the right to shape the state. For him, there are no minorities. The single nation gathered around the party state is embodied by the Führer, chef. The fact that politicians in many countries today speak to different groups by emphasizing different points is a remnant of Goebbels. This critical point in Goebbels' understanding of propaganda is flexibility. Goebbels legitimized politicians addressing various groups of voters in different ways with the concept of flexibility. He states that a propagandist can speak differently to a business person and differently to the driver of an election van. When he goes to the central city of minority, the language should be different. According to Goebbels, the timing of propaganda must be carefully calculated. Communication efforts must reach the audience before the rival propaganda. The rival propagandist should not be allowed to set the agenda. The party state should set the agenda, and the rival propagandists should follow it. In this sense, the controlled identification of opponent is essential. If the opponent is not destroyed, the party state must control, even determine it. The identification of the opposition is necessary on the road to fascism. Any opposition that goes beyond the legal limits set by the party state must be destroyed by imprisonment or murder. If possible, the people's codification of the legal line as their existence must be ensured through ideological apparatuses. This is achieved through the sanctity of the uniform, the sanctity of the law, the sanctity of the Führer, and the weaving of social values around these sanctities. The party state destroyed Berlin's colorful world of thought and different ways of life. Goebbels emphasized the importance of the poor quality of the information he conveyed to the masses. This narrowed the masses' level of consciousness. Dumping down the masses is the most basic way of fascist propaganda. For this reason, he emphasizes the importance of producing a mythology that is far from science. Blood ties, family, official history, flags, and symbols must be elevated to the level of God. They must not be questioned and must be protected by a mystical veil. The 7 propaganda techniques conceptualized by the American Association of University Professors AAUP in 1938, Institute for Propaganda Analysis, 1938, were studied and adopted by Goebbels. These 7 techniques are as follows. Name calling. The opponent is invariably given a derogatory name. The media repeats this name over and over again. It redefines people to be rejected or terms related to human rights and democracy in derogatory terms. For this purpose, it identifies so-called hunting dogs, writers, academics, and journalists. It is the lesser of 2 evils. On the hand, it keeps the us versus them divide alive by constantly coding opposing groups as terrorists. On the other hand, it covers the negative with positive qualities by producing discourses such as stealing but working. Bandwagon. The term bandwagon dates back to the 19th centuries, when politicians used wagons with music and entertainment to attract audiences. Expanding on this, the term bandwagon refers to the use of entertainment glorifying fascism, nationalist singers and artists, and anthemic performances to mobilize the public's emotional vulnerabilities and reinforce beliefs in fascism. Transfer. Motivating activities by embedding them in national and religious values. After reproducing national and religious values by detaching them from their essence, these values transfer party principles. Appearing like a commoner, plain folk, making the public believe that the people they support are similar to themselves, thus establishing kinship like a relative. Fascism glorifies kinship relations and wants to make the whole society look like a single family. In this sense, the Führer is the father of the community and is as much a member of the people as a father. Card stacking. Constantly exposing the opponent's shortcomings. If there are no shortcomings, create shortcomings, resorting to lies, censorship, and distortion, and identifying and repeating the emphasis on vacation with the opponent to expose his laziness. When a shortcoming of the party state is exposed, making a constant fuss, so that the situation is forgotten. Glittering generalities. Defining one negative of minorities as all-encompassing, characterizing all minorities as terrorists, and repeating this label at every point, placing the generalizations of the party state in the public domain and making everyone look at the group that the state calls terrorists in this way. Goebbels considered it essential to foment debate between good and evil, right and wrong. However, it's necessary to keep the discussion on an emotional level. Whatever is scientific and realistic must be downplayed in the eyes of the public. Democracy or human rights must be minimized as much as possible, and faith in these concepts must be broken. When communicating party-state messages, celebrities, experts, phenomena, or people similar to the target audience who have attracted the attention and trust of the masses and are socially respected are used. As Dimitrov said, the capitalist state exploits social values to the fullest. The capitalist state is always prone to evolve into autocracy. Fascism is an apparatus that comes to the aid of the ruling classes when the economy is stagnating. It uses the sacred, and it is impossible to fight against fascism without breaking with all the holy. The opposite of fascism is not real communism. The opposite of fascism is real democracy, which protects and doesn't deny the existence of minorities, spreads power throughout society, and rejects centralization. Hitler and Goebbels knew the importance of centralizing power in the state and locking the entire population into a single purpose. All anti-democratic regimes and dictators know this.